Hello, and greetings from Baltimore, Maryland, the home of the Peabody Institute at the Johns Hopkins University. My name is Abra Bush, and I am the Senior Associate Dean of Institute Studies here at Peabody. I'm delighted that you could join us today for Technology to Teach Keyboard, the second in our series of 9 summer lunch and learn events focused on the challenges and opportunities of remote instruction for music. A special thanks goes to the academic leadership at many of the conservatories and schools of music in the United States and the United Kingdom for their support for this series. They graciously supported my idea for this work and recommended a list of presenters who do excellent work in the areas of remote and online pedagogy. Before we get started, I would also like to thank 4 Peabody staff members who are joining us today and supporting this event. Joseph Montcalmo is Peabody's Director of Academic Technology and Instructional Design, where he leads an incredible team of staff involved in every aspect of academic technology and online learning. Joe is here to advise on any matters related to pedagogy, synchronous and asynchronous instruction, and any other technical applications. Adam Scalici from Peabody's production team will be in the background monitoring the webinar and working through any technical challenges we may have. And Patrick Wallen and Christina Mancior from Peabody are here to help me curate your questions and look up any resources that we may need through this event. A very special thank you to all of them. A few quick notes before we begin. Please hop into the chat and introduce yourselves. We'd love to hear from you and know where you're from, and hope you'll consider this an interactive session. The presenters will spend a total of somewhere between 20 and 30 minutes. And then we'll take time for your questions and comments. Please place your questions into the Q&A area of the webinar. We'll curate those questions and ask them of the presenters. Should you have any technical questions at all or difficulties, please go to the chat window and let Adam know. He'll be monitoring that window for any challenges you may encounter. Please note that the presenters have graciously agreed to permit us to record this webinar. The session will be posted to the Peabody Keep Teaching website within 1 to 2 business days, should you wish to refer to it again or share it. And now, without further ado, I am so pleased to welcome our guest presenters for today. Dr. Mario Ajero is professor of piano at Stephen F. Austin State University in Nacogdoches, Texas, where he teaches applied piano, group piano classes, piano pedagogy, and serves as the keyboard coordinator. Dr. Alejandro Cremaschi, professor of piano at the University of Colorado Boulder, teaches piano pedagogy and applied piano and also coordinates the class piano area. Their full bios may be found on the Peabody Keep Teaching website should you have any questions. And now it is my honor to turn this over to Mario.
Well, thank you so much, Abra, and thank you to the Peabody Institute at Johns Hopkins University for this opportunity for Dr. Cremaschi and I to talk to you about technology to teach keyboard remotely. As she said earlier, our prepared presentation will go about 30 minutes, and then we'll do our best to answer the questions that you post in the Q&A area. And in addition to the recording of this presentation, I'll also make this keynote slideshow available to you guys here. Oops, first I got to do the screen sharing thing. Give me a second. And here we go. And can everyone see that okay? All right, so we'll be making this keynote slideshow presentation available in a PDF format, and we'll also have hyperlinks to all the technology and services that we'll be discussing and demonstrating today. So when we think about teaching piano or any applied music discipline remotely, really envision some type of doing our traditional face-to-face lessons and classes and the way that we normally have done, and transferring that to Zoom, FaceTime, Skype, or some other video conferencing platform. But it isn't always as easy as we think that it would be, because there's so many challenges that the students face, and Alejandro will discuss these a little bit later on. But I want to direct your attention to an alternative means of instruction and learning, which would be to think of also the possibilities with asynchronous or time-shifted instruction that doesn't rely on the teachers and students to be together in the same place or even together at the same time in order for there to be meaningful learning and music-making experiences to take place. And that will be the focus of this first part of our presentation today on what has worked for me and my students at Stephen F. Austin State University. So at Stephen F. Austin State University, the majority of our music majors are vocal and instrumental music education majors, but we also have performance degrees, performance majors, composition, sound recording technology, and pedagogy as well. And the National Association of Schools of Music asserts that basic keyboard proficiency is required for Bachelor of Arts in Music and Bachelor of Music degrees. So these group piano classes are oftentimes a key component with many of our institutions. And I established right away that our goal at SFA is not to make them concert pianists, but slash pianists, like French horn player slash pianist, or percussionist slash pianist, singer slash pianist, or whatever their primary discipline is, and that they also have the piano skills that make them a much more valued music professional once they graduate from our institution. And what this has done, of course, is create some really large class sizes from our perspective, where we oftentimes in my classes, we have up to 16 students that often fill, and we've grown to close to 500 music majors in our little school in East Texas. But we have these large class sizes where we fit about 16 students in a piano lab, and there was a need for us to find alternative means of assessing students' performance skills and maximize the interaction in our piano lab, because if we listen to every student individually within the piano lab, then the time that we had in class would be all gone at that point. So what I did was I experimented with Facebook groups about 10 years ago, using the social media platform Facebook, in which we would create these private Facebook groups that students would be allowed to, and this was optional, in lieu of performing live for their instructor. They could record their performance and capture that magical musical moment when they got it perfectly in the practice rooms, and we would assess that particular video recording. A lot of this was done about 10 years ago when video conferencing and live video streaming wasn't as ubiquitous as it is today. So this was a good solution. You know, sometimes we had students who had not the greatest cell phones or internet connections, but it was serviceable for what we needed to do in our functional group piano classes. So when COVID-19 hit, shifting to 100% online classes wasn't as difficult for us personally as it would have been if we didn't have this foundation in place. And you don't have to use Facebook groups. I've heard of other institutions using other various platforms, whether it be closed or affiliated with social media, but Facebook seemed to be the easiest way to meet the students where they were, which is a big part of my teaching philosophy for sure. What I did need to do, though, was to prepare more instructional video content with the lack of face-to-face time. And the challenge is how to make that content as engaging, if not more so, than when they are in the lab with me here. And of course, you could hire video professionals, but if you're on a particular limited budget, you might want to pay particular attention to some of the hardware that I have here on the screen. I use a MacBook Pro computer. You don't necessarily have to have a Mac, but it's the platform that I feel most comfortable with over the decades, and has been really functional, particularly with video editing and MIDI applications. I have a Yamaha Disclavier piano in my studio, which is an acoustic piano, grand piano, but it also has MIDI capability, so it can connect with other other instruments and other computer applications and mobile devices as well. I also use a Logitech webcam. I don't know if you guys can see it here. It's mounted on the on this microphone stand. I use a Logitech webcam, a C930E, although I've used a C920, which has been great. I like the C930. I just recently upgraded to that because it gives me a wider field of range for the keyboard, so I don't have to mount it so incredibly high above the piano. And I also used an onstage boom microphone stand to connect the camera onto it. But of course, the camera itself can't just attach to it unless you're creative with some duct tape or some other means as well. But I use this OnStage CM01 video camera adapter. I don't know if you guys can see it over here. I actually am using it for my microphone here. It looks like this, and what it does, it changes the microphone holder into a camera or an audio recorder holder in this particular case, and that's what I use to mount the camera above, so then students can see my hands clearly at the piano keyboard from a vertical perspective. I recently added a Zoom H4n audio recorder to improve the audio, both of my voice and also of the piano as well, so it can pick up both my voice and the piano pretty clearly. The built-in condenser mics are top-notch for both speech and also music, and the ability for it to serve as an audio interface if you want to attach other microphones, like a separate microphone for your piano or a lavalier microphone. But I haven't particularly felt the need. I think this is a great all-in-one solution that has fit particular for me, and Alejandro will discuss what some of the technology that he's used in his own personal studio as well. I also added a DSLR camera. That's what I'm using for this Zoom call as well, in order to get a side view of me sitting at the piano. So then I can also discuss posture, technique, demonstrate and model hand position more easily than if I was just this floating hands here. Also, I think it adds a certain personal touch when you can the students can see your face on the video. That they feel a little bit more connection, and they can read some of your facial expressions also as you're presenting some of these videos for them as well. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to share a clip from a recent instructional video that I made for my class piano students at Stephen F. Austin State University that uses the equipment that I just transferred to my home instead of to my home. The only thing that I didn't transfer was the disc clavier piano, but fortunately I have another disc clavier piano in my studio as well. So all I needed to do was bring everything else over to my home studio during this COVID-19. But check out this short clip that I have of me using some of this technology. Hello, piano students. This is Dr. Mario Harrow, professor of piano at Stephen F. Austin State University. And in this video, I want to teach you a chord progression that contains the following chords at the piano: the 1 chord, the 6 chord, the 4 chord, the 2-6 chord, the 1-6-4 or cadential 6-4, the 5-7, and then back to the 1 chord. I'm going to show it to you here in the key of C major first, and then transpose it to a different key, and hopefully that will give you enough knowledge to be able to transpose it to any of the other keys in the on the diatonic scale here. So we're going to start off with C major. Notice how the bass line goes for this commonly used chord progression in Western culture music. It starts off on Do, and if you're following along, those of you who are in my class piano group piano classes at Stephen F. Austin State University, we're on page 316 from Alfred's Group Piano for Adults, Book 1. And follow the fingering as they suggest here. I'm playing it the left hand down an octave just so that you can see a bigger differentiation between my right hand and left hand. But I start with the tonic note C with my thumb. Then I play the 6th scale degree, La, with my 3rd finger, because it goes down a minor 3rd, and then it goes down a major 3rd, down to F. I play the same F or Fa with my 2nd finger. That way I can play the rest of the bass line with my thumb up a major 2nd, same note, and then back down a perfect 5th to the tonic note 1 octave lower, like so here, okay? So again, so if we had more time, I'd show more, but if you want to see the rest of that tutorial video along with other piano lesson videos, please visit my YouTube channel at the address that you see on the screen, and you can subscribe if you want to get notifications when I post new content. I also see some questions in the Q&A that I think I can answer real quickly here. And if you also have questions, feel free to post them in the Q&A tab on your Zoom call here. Eileen mentions that her Zoom H4n transposes everything. Yeah, there's a problem with the frequencies matching, that you have to go into your computer or the Zoom's audio recorder and adjust it so that they have matching 44,100 hertz or 48,000. So I actually have a I actually already have a video on my YouTube channel that does address this here as well. Okay, so Elena was asking, are you using Classroom Maestro in your video? Oh, you just like predicted my very next slide here. So yes, what really helps me make these engaging content that connects with students through different learning modalities is just a couple software applications which are really easy to use, not terribly difficult. Classroom Maestro by Time Warp Technologies is probably the most valuable software application that I've used close to 15 years now. It's a MIDI application to visualize keys, notes in real time. It originally was conceived as a visual aid in the Piano Lab classroom, but I found it just as valuable and maybe even more effective as an online teaching tool, so that everything that I played on my Yamaha Disklavier piano was able to be displayed on the screen in real time as we're going, both on the keyboard and also on the staff as well. So, and then the other application that I use is Screenflow. This is only this is by Telestream, and it's only a Mac application, so you have to have a Mac in order to use it, but Alejandro has some other alternatives that he's going to be discussing when I shift things over to him. You can record the contents of your computer screen while also capturing your video camera, iOS device, and microphone. And if we had more time, I demonstrate this software, but I do have an article if you want to check out these further readings. I wrote an article for Clavier Companion magazine, which is now rebranded as Piano Magazine, in 2015, called Flipping Piano Classes and Lessons with Rich Online Video Content. You can check that out both on their website and also in the print publication if you want to just go through your libraries and obtain it that way. And there is also a YouTube video that I created that was a kind of a companion piece to that particular article. I also recently gave a webinar entitled DIY, Do It Yourself, Creating Engaging Piano Lesson Videos, as part of a series sponsored by the Francis Clark Center for Keyboard Pedagogy and Piano Magazine. So if you're not already aware of this particular resource, I already saw there were some people in the chat area who already have contributed to this. So thank you for chiming in today here. If you're not already familiar with Piano Magazine and the Francis Clark Center for Keyboard Pedagogy, I encourage you to visit this website where they have curated all these different articles, videos, webinars, and other resources to support teachers in this challenging time of COVID-19. And just a reminder, I'll address all your questions in the chat area, in the Q&A area when we get through the first half of this hour here. But let me turn the presentation over to Dr. Cremaschi, who will share his experiences at the University of Colorado Boulder and what has been effective with his students.
Thank you, Mario. First, I wanted to say that for some people, these kind of webinars may feel a little overwhelming because we talk a lot about technology and tools and gadgets. I want to say that you should not feel like this is an all or nothing situation. In fact, I think a lot of the stress that we as piano teachers have been feeling in the last 3 months has stemmed from feeling overwhelmed with the many technology options we face and the different levels of complexity. So my advice is to start small and start experimenting as you go along. So, you know, don't feel overwhelmed by the amount of information in here. I want to mention that in my discussion, I will not address changes or adaptations in the way we teach. Later in my presentation, I will show you some resources that will hopefully help you become more effective online teachers. So the spring of 2020 was a hard time for many of us. It was a process of trial and errors. It was a process where we learned from colleagues. And so I have my colleagues to thank for a lot of the information that I'm going to share with you today. Some of us have been doing already some online teaching. That was my case. I had been teaching private lessons with kids in Brazil, actually, and for a while. And then I had also been doing some online group piano teaching. So the teaching that I had been doing up to the spring was mostly synchronous, meaning that we would meet on Skype or Zoom, and the kids on the other side would play, and I would play, and we would talk and discuss, and they would go and practice, and then I'll see them next week. This model had many challenges when we hit the spring of 2020 with the pandemic. So I ended up settling for a hybrid model that combined asynchronous and synchronous teaching. I'm going to be talking about that a little bit more in the next slide. So I want to just mention some of the challenges that we faced. We were asked to switch very quickly. I think it was a span of maybe a week where we were teaching in our studios very happily, and then suddenly we had to just learn how to do it online. Many of our students didn't have instruments and didn't have access to instruments in school because of restriction of access. Some of our students didn't have the right equipment or the right type of internet connection. So I want to move to the next slide, Mario, please. I want to just mention a few things that we did to alleviate some of these challenges and some of the things that we actually may do in the fall as we move forward. First of all, our College of Music provided about 10 Kawai keyboards. These are sensitive touch, weighted keys. They run for about $600. And, you know, they were kind of the lower of the line, but adequate enough for piano majors to keep practicing and, you know, having an instrument that resembled in some ways an acoustic instrument. The College of Music also bought some microphones. We actually bought Blue Snowballs for some of our students who didn't have good mics or good cell phones, basically. We also provided some low-end Casio keyboards for our non-major classes. Some of the non-majors had to go home. At home, they did not have instruments. Some of them lived in the area, so they picked up keyboards. We just lent them, and they returned them at the end of the semester. We will be actually doing something similar with our non-music major classes, and I will talk a little bit about that in a second. Because CU actually has a Zoom subscription, we ended up using Zoom as our platform of preference to meet our students in synchronous manner. We quickly found out that Zoom and Skype and all these programs actually do mess up with your microphone. These programs have been created so that you can talk to your grandpa or your grandma who lives in Argentina. Well, my grandparents actually died a long time ago, but my parents. They adjust the volume so that the voice is pretty constant and pretty clear. But unfortunately, a piano doesn't sound like a human voice. And so that means that the program ended up adjusting the volume and doing a lot of weird things. Fortunately, there are ways to optimize these programs for musical instruments. I'm not going to go into detail, but I will send you to Google optimizing Zoom for audio or for music, and you will find several very good guides online. Recently, one of my colleagues at CU told me about cleanfeed.com. Cleanfeed is a program that allows you to do conferences with audio only, no video, just audio. And the audio is actually the best you can get online. So I'm experimenting with having Zoom for the video, muting Zoom so that it doesn't pick up the microphone, and using cleanfeed.com, which is super easy to use and it's free, to stream my sound, the sound of my piano. So as I mentioned earlier, I settled for an asynchronous and synchronous modalities, a combination. I'm going to move on to the next slide, Mario, please. So what does asynchronous mean? It means that the student and I would share videos ahead of the lesson. Okay, those videos were pre-recorded. The quality was usually better than when you streamed on Zoom. And those videos allowed me to actually watch the material ahead of the lesson, to really plan my lesson, and it really focused the lesson quite a bit. Okay, it also alleviated issues with unreliable internet. You know, there were maybe a few minutes, so I felt like I wasn't wasting time with those little glitches in the internet. So we would watch actually the video together with the student, or portions of that. I would stream the video, and then we would discuss. So this opened up a lot of possibilities for discussion, for conversation, and then for trials and modeling. Okay. These videos were shared mainly through YouTube or Google Drive. And one of the nice things about having these videos is that I could annotate them ahead of time, meaning that I could insert comments at specific moments in the video so that the student would review those comments after the lesson. Okay. In order to do that, there are several tools, and you have those listed there. Video Ant from the University of Minnesota is one of those. It's a nonprofit. Then there's a few that are actually for-profit, but they do have free, the basic accounts. So Dropbox or Timeliney and Reclipped. I actually have a couple of videos there that may give you some ideas on how to use that. I believe these slides will be available on the website at Peabody. Next slide, please, Mario. So I want to move on. Actually, before saying moving on, I want to mention that most of my experience is with adult college level students. There are a whole range of challenges that you face when you're working with young children. I will mention a few resources later on that may help you tackle those challenges. So I want to also mention that this coming semester, we will probably go back to some face-to-face instruction with, the 6 feet distancing that the officials are asking us to observe. But I have liked the asynchronous modality so much that I may actually be asking my students to pre-record videos before coming to the lessons, basically because it forces them to listen to themselves, to be more independent. It forces also me to focus the lesson on very specific aspects rather than just wasting 15-20 minutes asking the student to play a piece from the beginning to the end. So I think that has actually changed my teaching in some ways. So I'm going to move on now to group piano. And I'm planning 2 approaches for group piano. One is fully online for the non-music major classes, and the other one is a hybrid model that combines in-person meetings and online work. Move on to the next slide, please, Mario. So I have been teaching in asynchronous modality at CU already for a few years. Every summer we offer an online class for non-music majors. So switching was not that difficult for me. However, it was a lot of work. So for the non-music majors, this class will be offered mostly as an asynchronous class. Students will borrow USB keyboards like the Casio that you have on the right side. We are also strongly suggesting that students buy a keyboard. They can buy a Casio for about $140 online, and so we will be advising students to do that. These non-major classes rely on 3 major tools. Canvas, which is a learning management system similar to Blackboard or other systems. Students will access the instructional videos that we will post there. They will access also PDF directions. Those videos will be created with tools like the ones that Mario showed, using programs like Camtasia or Filmora or Screenflow to edit the video. But it could be done also with something as simple as a cell phone. I will actually be training my TAs to create short videos that usually not longer than 5 minutes, many of those if necessary, tackling a single concept or piece per video, as opposed to a 20-minute video, which is very, very difficult to watch. The second tool that we rely on is a program called Piano Marvel. It's available at pianomarvel.com. It's an online teaching and assessment system. Piano Marvel contains a collection of easy pieces organized by level of difficulty. Students learn and practice specific pieces that we assign per week with the system, and the system provides basic feedback. For example, wrong notes and wrong rhythms. So this alleviates a little bit of the instant feedback that often students need. They're playing on the wrong octave or they're playing on the wrong hand position. So the system also grades their performance and allows the instructors to keep track of their work. So we require specific scores from the students. The third tool that we're going to use are regular video submissions. Students will submit videos regularly once a week, and we're going to be using different platforms for that. I'm going to move on to the next slide, please. So those video exchanges, we haven't yet settled on one tool, but I wanted to mention a few. Canvas, the learning management system, has come a long ways in allowing students to record within the browser. So you don't need a separate device. You could just put your laptop or your cell phone and record and share. So that's a very, very convenient way. A closed Facebook group, like Mario mentioned, Google Drive, everybody at CU actually has a Google Drive account. I want to mention one system called collaboramusic.com, which allows teachers to set up groups and to comment on videos and to share videos, and also to engage students in discussion. It's actually a pretty neat tool, and it's free for the teacher. Students pay a very, very small fee per month. Finally, I want to mention Music U, which is a tool that I developed here at CU a few years ago. It's also a video exchange tool. It's not yet available to other schools, but I'm actually working right now to make it available in about a month. So stay tuned for that. Follow me on Facebook for news on that. Next slide, please. I want to quickly mention, I know that we are getting very close to the ending time and the question time here. I want to mention very briefly a few, well, first of all, I want to mention how we're going to work with music majors. So we're going to meet music majors once a week as opposed to twice a week. We will work with very small groups of 4 students to allow distancing. And we will rotate those subgroups in cycles of 2 weeks. We will be asking students to actually send us videos of their performance as well. And we use a specific method called Innovative Piano, which is a media-rich method. It contains a lot of modeling videos and soundtracks. So it's ideal for this kind of hybrid setting. Moving on to the next slide, please. I want to mention very briefly a few tools that I have found interesting and useful. Many people know about musictheory.net. This website allows instructors to customize drills and flashcards. We use it extensively to drill key and note identification for our non-music majors, especially at the lower levels. Soundtrap.com is a program that was originally created to edit audio online and to collaborate with other musicians. The platform can be used to create opportunities for collaboration between students. For example, recording ensembles, keyboard ensembles, or improvisations, and recording parts individually. I have created a few demos there. On the right side, you'll see some links where you can actually see me in action working with these tools. The last tool I want to mention is flat.io, which is an online music notation that also allows 2 or more people to work on the same project together. So this can be used for any group exercise that requires notation, for example, harmonizations or compositions. I'm going to move on now to the next slide. And I want to mention this magazine, Mario mentioned it earlier, the Piano Magazine, and the companion website, specifically the May 2020 issue, contains more than 20 articles written by different teachers and pianists about how they adapted their teaching to the online media. So highly recommended. It requires a subscription, but in my opinion, it's really worth the price. And then a couple of articles, Diana Dunlawala at Florida State University published in 2017 an article that looks at attitude and perception of students and parents and teachers about transitioning to an online piano lesson. And then Pamela Pike, who teaches at LSU, also another article where she looked specifically at teachers teaching online group piano. So those resources are really, really good. I'm going to turn it now to Mario.
Okay. Before we turn it over to questions, I wanted to share one more thing. Alejandro discussed the challenges of faculty having bad online connections in live lessons with students, and I see some of you in the chat area really interested about clean feed and trying to improve the audio quality as best as you can so you can give some meaningful feedback to the students. Wouldn't it be cool if your student could play your piano remotely and eliminated the variable of poor microphones and poor speakers? But fortunately, I've been involved in research and beta testing of technology that actually makes this possible. One is a proprietary technology that enables Yamaha disc clavier pianos, like the one that I have here, to connect with another one using a technology they use called remote lesson. So then you can see the keys moving up and down. And if you want to learn more about that, go to the Yamaha Disc Clavier Education Network website at yamahaden.com, yamahaden.com. But if you want to connect any MIDI-capable piano with another, one application that enables this is Internet MIDI from Time Warp Technologies. You do need either a Mac or a Windows computer connected to a MIDI-capable piano in order to make it happen. But this is just a short video demonstration that I wanted to show of my son, Neo, who is playing. We're still in the same house here, but we're in a Zoom call. But we've connected our pianos over the internet, where he's playing on a Yamaha NU1 hybrid piano, has the same wooden keys and U1 and action as a U1 acoustic upright, but there's just no strings on it here. He's going to be playing everything on that piano, and it's going to be transmitted over the internet to my disc clavier piano using Internet MIDI. Can you play a little bit of the Liszt Transcendental Etude, Mazeppa, where the main theme kicks in? That was great. So you could see how the Internet MIDI application is able to capture all the different nuances because it's transferring MIDI data, the note on, note off, the velocities, and even the pedal changes throughout all of that here. And if it's able to handle something as complex as Mazeppa, one of the Transcendental Etudes by Liszt there, you can imagine how well it can faithfully reproduce some of the other repertoire that many of us piano faculty encounter in our teachings as well here. So I think that's going to wrap up our presentation here today. Again, want to thank the Peabody Institute for giving us this platform to share what we had here today, and I think we're going to open it up for questions that if you haven't already put into the Q&A area of this, then you can do so at this particular time.
Thank you, Mario and Alejandro. This is tremendously helpful. I am so grateful to you for sharing with us your expertise in this area. It's just really quite remarkable what you've been able to achieve. It's fantastic. All right, here are a bunch of questions. I'm just going to slam them at you, and you can answer them as they come. For Mario, what software are you using to transcribe your piano notes to the screen as you play? Just to clarify.
Yeah, sure. It's not a transcription. It's just happening in real time. It's called Classroom Maestro, and it's from Time Warp Technologies. If you guys don't mind indulging me for just a second here, I actually have it already loaded onto my computer right now. And if I do the sharing of the screen here, so can everyone see the Classroom Maestro? So I have it already connected to my piano, and then everything that I'm playing is just replicated in real time there, okay? Even the pedals will, you get a visualization of the pedal. So in some ways, you know, if you think about like the traditional piano lesson where someone, if you're in a piano lab or in a piano lesson, sometimes they can't see the pedals, what you're doing, if you're doing like a half pedal or a full pedal. And this gives you just these different ways of visualizing the experience. It even has smart analyses of, oops, excuse me, give me a second here. So it will analyze the chords for you, as you saw in there, just not just Roman numeral analyses, but also functional, root quality chord symbols as well. So that's Classroom Maestro by Time Warp Technologies.
Yeah, if I can add just a couple of things. You do need a capable, MIDI-capable keyboard. It doesn't quite work with just a simple acoustic keyboard. Mario has a disc clavier that actually transmit MIDI to the program. I also wanted to say that you don't need a disc clavier necessarily to use the program. Mm-hmm. You can actually have just a digital piano like the one you see here in the back. This is a Roland keyboard that I have in my office. Or, you know, even like a Casio $140 keyboard will be able to connect and transmit MIDI to the program.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's very helpful. The next question, how is the sound quality of the Zoom H4n compared to Cardioid condenser mics like Audio Technica AT2020?
I'm not familiar with that other particular model here, but I am using the Zoom H4n right now, so I mean, you could hear how it sounds. I don't have it specifically like placed by the piano, but both for my voice and for picking up the piano sound, I haven't had any complaints from any of my students. That's about the quality that I get. It has these condenser mics that are on it there that I think are a notch above maybe the Blue Snowball and Blue Yeti mics that Alejandro had mentioned, but of course it is a little bit pricier than those models.
Great, thank you. There were a lot of questions about clean feed. So I guess I'll start with, how does clean feed work? And how is the lag time in clean feed? And I know Joe and his team have also done a little bit of work with clean feed. So maybe I'll have Alejandro or Mario answer first, and then we'll get Joe to weigh in on that too.
Well, I'm very new to clean feed. As I mentioned, one of my colleagues, professor of harpsichord, Robert Hill, actually introduced it to me, he's been using it for a while. It's basically a website where you create an account and then you invite someone via email. They get a link, just like Zoom. They click on the link, it opens the website, and you are instantly connected through the microphone on your device. So basically, the sound quality transmission is better than in Zoom. So the way Robert has been using it is he uses Zoom for the video, but mutes the microphone so that the microphone, the sound doesn't travel through Zoom, which tends to compress and do things to your sound. It travels through clean feed. Joe, do you have something to add?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Thank you for that presentation. It was great. I would just say, you know, when we're thinking about tools like clean feed, these two gentlemen are experimenters, right? And Alejandro, you just mentioned that you've just been using it for a little while. I saw a couple of questions come into the Q&A about, you know, if you record your Zoom call, but you're using clean feed for the audio, how does that work? Does it record the audio? So I would just throw up a little bit of caution and say, when you're using any types of these tools and experimenting, that you're going to introduce complexity into what you're doing as well. And if you're prepared to handle that, then that's great. But you want to be careful, right? So if you do use CleanFeed, you're using a separate audio conversation along with the Zoom video. So if you record your Zoom call, as Alejandro said earlier, your Zoom call would be on mute. So all that would be recorded via Zoom would be the video. And you'd have the clean feed recorded separately and then maybe have to go back later and sync that up in a separate tool. So that's something to keep in mind. I would also mention that I know that Michael, I'm on a small committee with Michael Yaff at Yale, and they've put together a small consortium of conservatories who are talking directly to Zoom to try and put together like a music mode button in Zoom, right? So a lot of the issues that we see with Zoom with audio quality not being what we need it to be, certainly there are going to be some limitations, but this request that's going to go in from all the conservatories is specifically to lump all of those features together and maybe have Zoom implement a little bit higher codec for music, as well as turning off all the noise cancellation and the other features that are optimized for voice. So if that goes through at some point, then there would be just a music mode button in Zoom that would allow for, hopefully, it would enable a lot more functionality for folks like you who are trying to teach different instruments in the tool. I would also mention that a lot of what the questions that are coming in are talking about synchronous performance. And that's something that we hear about a lot right now in conservatory education. It's difficult, right? Like you want to be able to promise that you're going to be able to perform together and it's all going to work and the internet's going to catch up and the technology is going to catch up. Some of that may happen, but I think at this point we have to be cautious about not promising to our students that we'll be able to do more than we might be able to do. And we're also looking this at Peabody as an opportunity to really look at some of the asynchronous pedagogy that we can start to explore a little bit more. So if you look at tools like VoiceThread, that's something where your students can record themselves and send it to you, and then you can put inline time code stamped video responses. And just gives you a little bit more flexibility, especially if the internet speeds of your students or wherever you are impacted. And you know, don't be deceived if you're on campus that you're going to have a high-speed connection, because if you're trying to go outside of your university connection, the security layers on your university network are going to add lag, right? So even when we think we're in the most ideal environment, it may not be what you think. So I would just add that, but I'm also very excited by all the experimentation that's going on. I think if you're aware of that and are willing to play, there's a lot of great things that are going to happen with this type of education.
Thank you. You both mentioned a number of software applications, and I'm curious, and especially around CleanFeed, if you have encountered any challenges with students who are outside of the United States, specifically in China. We all have a number of students from there, so I'm curious if you've had any issues with it there.
Not so far. We most of my teaching is that the college level when this pandemic hit in the spring and the middle of the semester. So I mean, international students actually remained on campus. Some of them remained in town. So we didn't have the experience of having to teach someone who had gone home to China. But I can imagine there may be some major hurdles to connecting live conferences with abroad. I have taught people in South America, and they actually had good internet connection there. So it was basically the same I experienced with someone next door in my case.
Great, thank you. There were some questions about playing together. For duets or synchronized playing, the attendee said, I understand Jamkazam is a good platform. It requires an interface. Can you recommend what would be a good one for this or any other platforms? Any advice about playing together would be appreciated.
Yeah, I haven't personally worked with Jamkazam. I've heard there's been great strides in it. One of the issues, again, is just the whole infrastructure that we have as far as our internet connections. There's always going to be some type of latency. Even in the internet MIDI that we have there, it may have looked like it was happening in real time there, but there's still a little bit of latency involved. What the internet MIDI application does, it actually puts an intentional delay on the MIDI data because it transfers faster than the video. So in order for it to look like it's in sync of what my son was playing in the other room, the Internet MIDI has an automatic setting to get it in sync with the video, or you can also have a slider to kind of adjust it if it just is not quite there yet there. But, you know, I've done things where with some students where I would play like an accompaniment, and students would improvise based off of the chord progressions that I was playing, and I kind of have to kind of tune out what they're playing back to me here and just kind of keep a steady beat. So it's not true collaborative playing in that sense here, but at least from the student's perspective, that has worked out for me. I don't know if Alejandro's had any other success or testing.
No, I know that you know, collaborative performances is kind of a very difficult topic in with this kind of online collaborations, and I don't have any experience with Jankazam. I know that some of my colleagues are looking into that possibility. I don't know if Joe has any experience with that.
I have a standard answer for Jamkazam. This came up a few months ago with some of our area universities asking questions about Jamkazam. And the one thing that I tend to do with these tools is I'll go to Facebook and look for user groups that use these tools just to do a little bit of research before I get too deep into looking into the tool itself. If you go to the Facebook group for Jamkazam, the whole discussion thread is filled with people saying that the support is non-existent and that it's essentially abandonware. So with any of these tools, I would just be, you know, again, a little bit cautious, cognizant of the fact that a lot of these tools existed before the coronavirus hit, and maybe didn't have the success they were expecting, and the websites are still up, but the tools may not be supported. So I put this in the chat, but especially at the enterprise level, when we're looking at deployment for all of our faculty, we just can't consider solutions that we don't have a contact for, right? So any of these tools that kind of make these promises, you could have success with them, and it could be fun to experiment. But again, just exercise a little bit of caution when you it's easy to get excited when you think that there's something that's going to work to solve this problem, but it can be a little bit more complex, and we just try and keep that in mind as we move through some of the solutions that are out there.
Thanks, Joe. Gentlemen, can you discuss any changes in pedagogy that you've made over the year, moving from classroom teaching to online teaching? Perhaps things you've added or taken out of the class, or even advantages you've found to the online model?
As far as like with the online teaching, it's definitely helped me refine my the efficiency of words that I use, and try to do less verbal explanation and more demonstration for them. Because when you go back and watch your own videos, I go back to some of my earliest online videos teaching. They're kind of embarrassing back in 2006 or so, and I think, oh God, what was I thinking at that particular time? I'm not the greatest public speaker to begin with here, but nonetheless, it allowed me to refine how efficient I am with my words in talking with my students as well. But also as far as now with a lot of asynchronous video exchanges and giving students certain deadlines to finish assignments and complete performances for me, I found being flexible with them, particularly during this time, which was really difficult for students here. I think I'm going to be definitely a lot more flexible with deadlines, and if you give students enough time and are a lot more flexible with particular deadlines on when they submit assignments for you or performances, a lot of times they'll rise to the occasion here. If you kind of, I try to set my deadlines and stay strict with them for this past spring semester, but then if a student didn't meet that deadline, I like, hey, whenever you're capable of doing so, I'll still accept it here. And most of the times those students rose to the occasion here.
Right. I mean, I want to mention again the Piano Magazine, because there's a few articles there that talk specifically about how the pedagogy of the teachers have changed with this new media. For me, I think my teaching has to necessarily become more focused, more goal-oriented, less talking. The availability of videos ahead of the lesson really helped me plan my lessons much more efficiently. And I think it also helped the student become more independent and to listen to themselves more critically. They have to actually produce a product before they go into the lesson, and they have to think about and listen to that product before they send it to you. So I think the ability of that part is actually a silver lining of what we're doing. I think in terms of concept-heavy teaching that we do in group piano, it has actually prompted me to reevaluate the curriculum somewhat, to trim things that may not be absolutely necessary, and to really focus on important things. So the last 5 weeks of the spring semester were a little bit of a marathon. I remember just spending so many hours during spring break redoing the last third of the semester and just taking things away and reorganizing how the material was going to be delivered and graded. One of the things that happened was that, for example, instead of asking our students to do a final exam at one point, we allowed those last 5 weeks for them to actually record several times, if necessary, some of the final material. So that means that they would kind of rethink and reevaluate themselves after they sent a recording and that recording wasn't good enough. The ability for them to keep perfecting that final exam as opposed to just doing one shot and failing that student because they actually did that. So I think that is a very interesting and different approach that I was forced to adopt.
Thank you both. I fear we're almost out of time, but I wonder if either of you have any very specific and very quick tips about teaching children and engaging children, specifically elementary age children, in using technology as they study piano right now.
With younger children there for sure, it can be definitely a lot more complicated and more issues. When I've shifted over to online teaching with my young students through our music prep program, I made sure that the parents were still present, and it actually was a great excuse to get the parents a little bit more involved, where they wouldn't normally they kind of just drop their kids off and then leave them to me there, but just for the safety for both the student and the teacher as well. It's great to have that parental presence there for sure. And a lot of the students really surprise me as far as their adaptability in this online format here. They take it really well and are quite understanding because they've grown up in this environment and don't know anything else other than this.
Right. Yeah. I think some students actually reacted in kind of, I wouldn't say a positive way, but in a productive way to the switch. It took some adaptation time for some, but some did not do as well, I think. Just talking to some of my TAs who teach younger children as well, that's what we saw. I think parent involvement was really important. Planning the lessons so that there's a variety of activity, that not not all the time was devoted to just playing back and forth, but there were other activities that were paper and pencil activities. Something as simple as rewarding students with a sticker you cannot do anymore. So some of my TAs actually rewarded their students by showing them a different cat. This teacher has different cats. So, well, you did so well. Now it's time to play with the cat. So they, finding that kind of human interaction that you cannot have anymore physically, but finding ways to do that. So yeah, again, I want to refer people to the Piano Magazine because there's a lot of great ideas there.
Thank you. Thank you all so very much. Dr. Ajero, Dr. Cremaschi. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, but your presentation has been so thoughtful and so packed with information for all of us. I look forward to studying more about it, and I continue to get questions and comments and information in the chat that I know we could go on and on for hours, frankly, given all the questions that we have. So please note, everyone, that the slides with the contact information for Dr. Ajero and Dr. Cremaschi will be available on the Peabody Keep Teaching website in a couple of days. I'd really also like to thank Joseph Moncalmo, Christina Mancio, and Adam Scalici, as well as Patrick Wallen for their support today. And finally, as a reminder, these sessions will occur live every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time through the end of July. A full list of sessions, upcoming presenters, and previous sessions are available on the Peabody Keep Teaching website. Following the session today, a brief survey should pop up in your browser. We look forward to your feedback and recommendations for future sessions, and we hope you'll consider tuning in again. Everybody stay well, wash your hands, and enjoy the remainder of your day. Bye-bye.